You're watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
All right, good morning, everybody, and thank you for joining us here on Fox 35 News Plus. My name is Josh Fugerio, and I'll be with you for the next hour as we cover news in the moment as it's happening here in Central Florida and all across Florida. You're looking for Garrett Weimer. He's got a much-deserved day off, so we wish him well on his weekend. He will be back next week to bring you all the news, again, as it's happening in that moment here on Fox 35 News Plus. All right, so big news happening this morning. We're continuing to follow the updates happening of suspended Osceola County Sheriff Marcos Lopez. This is a story that was breaking news all of yesterday. We were following it throughout the entire day, morning to night, and continuing in this morning. So I want to bring you just the latest updates of happening in that case. So if you haven't been following it, here's the update here. Marcos Lopez was the Osceola County Sheriff, and he was arrested on two charges yesterday: racketeering and then conspiracy to commit racketeering. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis went ahead and suspended him and then appointed an FHP chief to serve as Osceola County Sheriff in the interim right now. This morning, Marcos Lopez did make his first appearance in court. This was to go over and discuss the potential for bond. So I want to bring you those updates here. We've got a graphic that I'm going to show you, and this is what happened essentially at that bond hearing. They determined that he would be held on a $1 million bond. That's $500,000 for each count. If he posts that bond and gets to be released, he'll have to follow certain conditions. He'll have to have a GPS monitor. He must surrender all firearms and his passport within 72 hours. He can't have any contact with his co-defendants, and then his next court date will be June 30th. Now, how this hearing went, it lasted about 16 minutes. It started right at 9:22 this morning, ended just before 9:40. And the defense spoke, representative for Marcos Lopez spoke, and then the state also spoke. And so I just wanted to go over some of those updates for you as you kind of look through. So the state came in and said that the allegations here were just a serious breach of trust. They alleged that Lopez received $600,000 to $700,000 from this enterprise. The allegations are that he and co-conspirators were involved in a criminal organization that essentially ran an illegal gambling house with a lottery and slot machines. They argued that there was evidence that there was a wire transfer to a bank account. They alluded to a link to a potential fake business. The state requested a $600,000 bond for each count, which would have made that bond a total of $1.2 million. Again, looking at what we had seen in that full screen here, was that the judge ended up determining it to be a $1 million bond, $500,000 for each count. Again, that's one count of racketeering and one count of conspiracy to commit racketeering. The defense, they argued that Marcos Lopez was not a flight risk. They asked that he be treated like any other person, not necessarily to be treated as if sheriff of Osceola County. They cited his ties to his community and his family, both in his role. Said he wasn't a flight risk. They said that he has his own money as sheriff, and they were actually requested a $25,000 bond for each count, totaling $50,000. The judge did not rule that in that case, and then the defense called this a white-collar crime, arguing it was not a violent crime. And again, you can see there what the judge ordered. One interesting note that did happen during this hearing is that Marcos Lopez did appear via Zoom. He was in that orange a jumpsuit that the inmates have to wear, and he spoke. And one of the questions he asked was, how do I start the bond process? So we're going to replay that whole hearing for you. It's about 13 minutes long. We're going to play it in full so you can see that hearing as we watched it just about an hour and a half ago. So I'll have you listen in to that.
Good morning, sir. My name is Emily Currington. I'm a county judge who is here to do your first appearance hearing. There are 3 issues that I am here to decide. First, I will advise you of the charge or charges against you. You were here on a warrant that was issued by a judge who's already found probable cause to believe that an offense was committed and that you committed it. But I will advise you of those charges. I will then consider the issue of bond. In determining whether to set a monetary bond, how much, and any conditions of bond, I will consider a number of factors, including the nature of the offense charged, the potential penalty, whether you were on probation or out on bond for another offense at the time the new offense was allegedly committed, your ties to the community, your prior criminal record, your financial status, your employment history, any record of failing to appear at prior court proceedings, and the nature and probability that you might present a danger to the community. The third issue I will address with you is the matter of counsel. Your attorney, who has announced her name and presence for the record, is sitting to my left. She's not able to get into the jail in the secure part of the jail where you are, so she came to my office and she is here for that purpose. This proceeding today is being recorded. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say could be used against you in later proceedings. You have the right to communicate with your lawyer, with your family, and your friends. Reasonable means will be giving you the opportunity to do that. Can you raise your right hand so I can place you under oath? Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do, ma'am.
Thank you. Could you tell me your name, please?
Marcos R. Lopez.
Mr. Lopez, you were here this morning in Lake County case number 2025 CF 1479. It's a warrant that was issued for you for 1 count of racketeering and 1 count of conspiracy to commit racketeering. Attorney for statewide, I believe, is here. Would you like to be heard as to the setting of bond and any bond conditions? I know you filed a motion about the source of funds today, so if you would include that in your remarks, I'd appreciate it.
Yes, Your Honor. Panayota Papakos for the Office of Statewide Prosecution. As far as conditions, the state would be seeking an electronic GPS monitor as a condition of any release. We would ask that the court order the defendant to turn over his passport to the clerk of court. We would ask that he forfeit any and all firearms in his possession. And further, Your Honor, at this time, the defendant is charged with 2 first-degree felonies. So the state would be seeking a $600,000 bond as to each count for a total of $1.2 million. And I will go into essentially the criteria that the court has previously announced. First, the nature and the circumstances of the offenses charged justify this amount of a bond in this case. The state has filed an affidavit. I believe that the clerk filed it in separate sections because it is 255 pages. And so I provided it to Your Honor's judicial assistant this morning. And just some highlights that the allegations in that affidavit, the detail an extreme breach of public trust, the circumstances surrounding his misuse of office as the sheriff of Osceola County are very serious. Again, there's direct evidence in that affidavit of ongoing illegal enterprise. The weight of the evidence includes that the defendant obtained between, at the very least, $600,000 to $700,000 since 2020 from this illegal enterprise in cash payments. There is evidence in the affidavit of a wire transfer to a bank account he controlled through a fictitious business name. There's direct text message evidence from both WhatsApp and cell phone applications of his involvement in this enterprise dating back to 2019. Beginning on page 110 through page 148 of the affidavit, there are numerous text messages from the defendant directly to co-conspirators. The first co-conspirator being Miss Zhang, also goes by Kate. Those direct text messages evidence that he was using his influence as the sheriff even prior to election, indicating he was very respected in his community to facilitate the illegal enterprise. There's screenshots of slot machines and things of that nature in those text messages. Of note, I would direct the court to page 175, where the defendant was actively sourcing new locations for illegal businesses to come in from Lake County to Osceola County. That began in 2021. And then further on, beginning on page 229, there are text messages between the defendant and co-conspirator Krishna D. O'Karen. Your Honor can see some of the affidavit is redacted, but there are photos of active law enforcement officers that have responded to those locations. I'm sorry, there's some audio interference. There are photos evidencing the defendant's direct involvement and also using his influence to potentially obstruct criminal investigation into these businesses in Osceola County. So that would be the first two factors, the nature and circumstances, and then the weight of the evidence, again, evidenced in that detailed affidavit that was completed both by HSI task officers and the Florida Department of Law Enforcement. So there was two co-affiants in that case, with the understanding that this is a joint investigation. The defendant does not have any ties to Lake County that we are aware of. He has been suspended from office by the executive order of the governor. And moving on to subsection F, the source of funds, the state has filed a motion this morning, and I've provided it to the judicial assistant in its entirety. But essentially, this is a motion where we would be asking the court to inquire into the source of any funds that the defendant would use to post bail, or that you'd be using for collateral. Essentially asking the court that prior to posting that the defendant show that these are not funds derived from any illegal enterprise or any illegal proceeds. And I would rely on the written motion essentially that the statute allows the court to conduct that inquiry. And so we would ask that any release be stayed until the defendant meets his burden of showing that those funds are from non-criminal sources.
Anything else?
Not at this time, Your Honor.
Ms. Abraham.
Your Honor, $600,000 is a very high bond for the nature of this crime. Mr. Lopez has no criminal history. He has extreme ties to the community in Osceola County, which is still within the state of Florida and not very far from Lake County. He does have a family. He was publicly elected for 2 different terms as a sheriff's office. He does have funds from working at the sheriff's office. This is a white-collar crime, a non-dangerous crime. There is no indication that Mr. Lopez would be a flight risk in any way, or that he would not attend any of his court hearings. He has employment history. He does have financial resources. He has family and friends that are supportive to him as well. We would ask that this bond be set in the amount of $25,000 in each count. As state indicated, he no longer has his position at this time, so a $600,000 bond for each count would be tantamount to no bond at this point. When speaking with his family, there was indication that $25,000 on each count would be affordable to the family. Although Mr. Lopez has a title, we would ask the court to still look at Mr. Lopez as a regular individual and not just because he has a sheriff's title that he should be treated any differently. This is a racketeering charge. These are first-degree felonies. We'd be asking that his bond be set in a reasonable amount that would be affordable to his family, and that each count would be set in the amount of $25,000. In terms of conditions, there is no indication that Mr. Lopez would be a flight risk in any way. Mr. Lopez would agree to turn in his passport. In terms of having a GPS, if Your Honor would like for him to have a curfew, I believe Mr. Lopez would comply with that. I don't see the need for a GPS. This is not a violent crime. He is not a danger to society. This is a white-collar money crime at this point. GPS monitor, defense would argue, is not necessary at this time. He would comply with the conditions of no contact with any co-defendants in the case and surrendering his passports. Again, with the firearm condition, this is a non-violent crime. He's not a danger in any way. He doesn't pose a danger to the community. So we'd just be asking Your Honor to set conditions and a bond in a reasonable amount. Thank you.
Anything else?
Your Honor, briefly, we have HSI Task Force Officer Frank Tegler, as well as FDLE Inspector James Frank was on the line. There, in the course of this investigation, they determined that the defendant has traveled to Puerto Rico and there are ties to Puerto Rico. So that was the reasoning behind asking for, first of all, with the understanding that it's still the United States, we were asking for a monitor.
Anything else?
And then no contact with the co-defendants. I don't believe that I said that.
You didn't, but Ms. Abraham mentioned it and I had it in my notes too and post that as a condition. Anything else, Ms. Abraham?
Just because he has ties to Puerto Rico or that he's been to Puerto Rico still does not indicate that he would be a flight risk or not attend any of his court hearings that are required of him. So we would be arguing against the GPS monitor as a condition. In terms, and Your Honor, my apologies, in terms of the money income, he has been working at the sheriff's office, so he does have legitimate funds to be able to use to bond himself out.
All right. I am going to set bond in the amount of $500,000 on each of the 2 counts for a total of $1 million. I will require Mr. Lopez be fitted with a GPS monitor prior to his release from custody should he post the bond that I just set within 72 hours of release from custody. You'll be required to surrender your passport to the clerk's office for safekeeping, Mr. Lopez. You will be required to surrender any firearms in your possession to law enforcement. Which agency, Ms. Papakos, do you think would be most appropriate? Florida Department of Law Enforcement?
Yes, Your Honor.
That's what I assumed, to FDLE, and I will put that in my order that within 72 hours of any release from custody, all firearms in Mr. Lopez's your possession will have to be surrendered to the Florida Department of Law Enforcement. You may not have any contact whatsoever with any named co-defendant in the case, and I will make sure their names are in the order. Your next court date for right now is June the 30th, so I'm sure your attorney will be in touch with you. Anything else?
No, Your Honor.
No, Your Honor.
Is that the
Alright.
bond?
I'm sorry, somebody asked a question, I think. I'm not sure who.
How do I start the bond process?
So your attorney is likely to come talk to you in just a few minutes. She's probably going to come across the street, Mr. Lopez, and do that. If that doesn't happen, they're going to let you reach out to your family and to your friends. Also near the phones over there is a list of bail bonding agencies. You might want to try that as well. But I think your attorney is likely going to leave my office here shortly and come talk to you. So you can chat with her whenever she comes over in a few minutes.
Okay, thank you.
And Your Honor, if I may.
Certainly.
The NIMBY hearing is not necessary.
I am going to grant the state's motion as far as the source of funds goes pursuant to Florida statute 903.0462F. So the source of the funds will need to be shown to the state. If that's not satisfactory, you all will need to have a hearing in order for Judge Welke, who this case has been assigned to determine if the source of the funds has been appropriately shown. If the state agrees, you all can file a stipulation to that.
Your Honor, may
Yes,
I
Your Honor.
request that a hearing be set on Monday?
I would not have the jurisdiction in order to do that, and I do not have access to Judge Welke's calendar. You all are more than welcome to reach out to see if he can set a hearing today. I think that would be the best thing under the circumstances. I don't know what his schedule looks like, but I'm sure he'll get you hearing time as soon as he can.
Thank you, Judge.
Certainly.
All right. Welcome back. So yeah, you were listening to that hearing that happened this morning with Osceola County, suspended Osceola County Sheriff Marcos Lopez making his first appearance on those charges of racketeering and conspiracy to commit racketeering. Now, these are charges, these are allegations. We know that in the court system here in the U.S., we are innocent until proven guilty, right? Charges are brought down based on an investigation and then a probable cause to warrant the investigation into those charges there. Now, what was interesting, really at the end, you heard Marcos Lopez talk. He was asking about, how the bond process would work and how that would get started, and then the judge, handling this first appearance, this bond hearing, as it's called, was going through kind of the motions. So, just to recap real quick here, is that judge ordered a $1 million bond, $500,000 for each count. If Marcos Lopez posts that bond and is able to be released, then he will have to have a GPS monitor. He must surrender his firearms and his passport. He can't have any contact with the co-defendants. A few co-defendants, there are other people listed in the information or the complaint. A few of them have been, 2 of them at least have been arrested, and they were also having their bond hearing this morning. And then the next court date for Marcos Lopez right now is scheduled for June 30th. Now, the one thing that the judge did say that the state was talking about is they had filed a motion that just said that if Marcos Lopez does post bond, that they do want to know the source of those funds, where those funds are coming from. So that'll be one thing that he will have to comply with. There was also discussion about a potential hearing to kind of discuss that motion there. But the judge was saying that she did grant it under the Florida statute. and that if he does post bond, we will have to find the source of those funds. Coming up next, we're going to take a quick 2-minute break, but we're going to talk about what happens next. Right now, Marcos Lopez is suspended pending this investigation, pending this ongoing now this court case, right, that's happening. So if it all ends up that he is no longer able to be the sheriff, what happens? What is the process of selecting a new sheriff? We'll talk about that on the other side of the break. But before we go, we're going to give you a live look here at the Kia Center in downtown Orlando. A little bit hazy out there right now. The Saharan dust was on its way in, so we're kind of starting to see that. But it does look like the sunshine is poking through just a bit. So we'll see you in 2 minutes.
You're watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
All right, everybody, welcome back into Fox 35 News Plus. My name is Josh Fugerio. That first part of our entire show has really been dedicated to the ongoing news events impacting, suspended Sheriff Marcos Lopez. So we've already gone over the bond hearing this morning. We've gone over some of the details of the allegations against him. One of the questions now is what happens next, as this is going to go through not only the court process, but really the political process, that if Marcos Lopez ends up being removed from office. That's a big if, right? Again, these are innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. Right now, these are just allegations. What happens? But it's something that you do have to think of. So I would like to bring in Dr. Larry J. Walker. Dr. Walker, thanks for joining us. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me. So I appreciate it.
Now, Dr. Walker is an associate professor at UCF, and so this is kind of the big question. This is what we're talking about? Is kind of what happens next? So I guess first off is let's just answer that. Is what do we not know at this point, and what do we have to wait to see play out?
Well, we do know that he was removed, by the governor recently, and there's an interim, sheriff that's already been appointed. So the question is now is, when you highlight the point, what's next? And so I think one reminder is that Lopez was just won election a few months ago, and so he, just essentially the beginning of this term. So as one of the questions relating to what's next is, does the governor want the current interim, he's selected as interim, Blackmon, to, essentially kind of fill out the rest of this term, and then naturally just we'll have a reelection in a couple of years. So that's the first question, and I don't think the governor has answered that question yet. And I don't even know if he's determined what he's going to do next. But once again, this is the very beginning of Lopez's term. So does the interim person who's been selected for interim finish out his current term?
Yeah, and that's a great question. I was reading through the executive order yesterday, and this is something that Governor DeSantis has used. This is a power that does rely with the governor, that if there is either an investigation or he feels that somebody is not fulfilling their duty, that he does have the power to remove something. Is that a discussion that you've had with your classes? I'm stepping back a little bit from the particular point, but just of how, that the governor has used this quite often.
Yeah, so he has used it quite often over the last 2 to 3 years in moving individuals, not DAs, et cetera, who in various counties, including Orange County, where he's felt like don't align with I guess some of the political messaging and efforts to address issues relating to crime in particular counties. So yeah, so I've had conversations and listen, obviously colleagues throughout the state and throughout the country who focus on various issues relating to politics. And so the governor does have the power to make these decisions. And I think that we can all agree, considering the seriousness of the current charges against Lopez, that rightfully so, replacing him with someone in an interim position. RICO charges or racketeering charges are very serious, particularly against someone who's in law enforcement.
Yeah. Now the one thing was, so you decide, either to fill out the term, if that's end of the case, and then if you don't, though, we had reporting yesterday that was telling us that there would be a special election, and then that would actually happen in like the next general. When do special elections come into place, and why?
Yeah, obviously, this special elections, we've seen this the last couple of years here in the state of Florida. Some we've had, members of Congress pass away, or other individuals in various other key positions who have resigned or been indicted, et cetera. And then like the governor has the right to hold a special election. And this just keep in mind is that we have a governor's race coming up in 2026. So does the governor, we talked about Lopez just starting his term. Does he wait a little sooner? Does he wait to 2026 politically in terms of making sure the race is a little bit more competitive, or does he call a special election this year? And like I said, it's not quite clear yet about what he's going to do, but he certainly could say, put out a memo and say, hey, I'm going to call a special election in 90 days. So, but like I said, we certainly should find out a little bit more. I'm hoping over the next, maybe next 30 days about what the governor's going to do.
Yeah. What else are you paying attention to in this? I imagine as a professor who enjoys politics, right, enjoys teaching
Mhm.
politics, and you have your pulse on everything happening in the state. Anything about this particular events have happened of yesterday that have surprised you or that you found noteworthy?
Well, just kind of what I just alluded to, you never see someone from law enforcement, usually charges of law enforcement relates to something police brutality, misconduct. But rarely do you see RICO charges. I think for people who are watching to understand in the state of Florida, you can get up to 30 years in jail and a fine can fine of up to $10,000 for a RICO charge. So this is very serious. And among the other charges, the Lopez is being charged with. So just the idea that a member of law enforcement will be, charged with this kind of crime, a RICO charge, is pretty significant. Obviously, his alleged role in this illegal gambling, operation in Kissimmee. So I was surprised by the charge, but it looks like state and federal law enforcement have been working on this for a while, and obviously have enough evidence where they felt like they could charge him and arrest him.
Yeah, one thing here, and it's okay if I'm curious to know if you, with your expertise, if you could shed light on this. But when you go through like a federal charge versus a state charge, and the probable cause, right, that comes in there to have those charges, quote unquote, stick, right? Because you go through the
Yeah.
court cases and stuff. Do you see a difference between a state charge and a federal charge, and is there a difference in the level of information needed?
Yeah, so obviously, when you talk about, difference between state and federal charges, obviously the federal government has a lot more resources in terms of their investigative team, lawyers, et cetera. But, in order for them to charge a RICO charge against a member of law enforcement, you would assume that there are significant amounts of information they have, whether we're talking about bank statements or purchasing property or vacations or various other things that don't align with the amount of money that Lopez was making. So, usually with charges like this serious against someone, law enforcement, they have significant information. But once again, we have to go through a trial and everyone is, innocent to proven guilty. I think that's really important to highlight that. But you would assume that they have a significant, and maybe, and the other thing is, what about some of the individuals who charged? Have some of those individuals flipped and are they cooperating? So that's some of the information we don't have available right now. But there are a lot of details that the gaps and we haven't been quite filled in yet that we'll find more about in a couple of months.
Yeah, the other thing that I did find interesting was that Marcos Lopez, asked about the bond process, and he asked about how that process would get started. And I wondered if you found that to be surprising as a member of law enforcement who I think deal with the court system quite often, right? They work kind of in tandem. And I wonder maybe why that question was asked.
Yeah, I took note of that also. That's unusual, right? Because he understands more than anyone else with how the legal system, particularly how, making bond, how that works. So I was surprised to see that and not sure if that was something that he worked in his attorneys and some kind of tactical attempt in terms of, posing that question. But yeah, you would think he would more than anyone else be familiar how that process works.
Yeah, the other part that I thought was interesting was that the state had filed that motion asking that to prove the source of income, if he is able to come up with this $1 million, and she went through that process and she said, you'll have the option to talk to your attorney, and then you'll have the ability to reach out to family and friends, I presume, to help gather the funds needed. But they said, hey, we want to know where these funds are coming from. Obviously, I imagine that would be related to the racketeering and the conspiracy charges.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the suggestion is that, working with these other individuals being charged is over $21 million, which is a significant amount of money. I think it was $21.3 million exactly. So you're right. If you could, if you can come up with this large amount of money based on the income he's making, the government wants to know where that money is coming from. And this goes to the issue about whether he's been collecting assets and storing that money, whether it's jewelry or cash or various other assets. Has he been storing that? And is that some of that hidden in a place that the government can't get access to? And so once again, yeah, where's that money coming from if some money is stashed that, like I said, doesn't align with the amount of money he makes annually?
Yeah. Last question here, Professor, is that the other thing that the defense, who was representing Marcos Lopez, said in here was that they wanted him to be treated as a everyday regular person coming through the court system. Almost like putting the title aside that he was the sheriff. But they used that both to argue. The state argued that they wanted a higher bond because he is a member of the community, because he was sheriff of Osceola County, and that comes with some standing, right? It's an elected position. And then the defense came back and said, yes, he's a member of the community. That shows that he's got this community support, but also treat him like a normal person, an everyday person, not that he was the sheriff. I found that surprising.
Yeah, it's a double-edged sword. So historically, even when law enforcement charge whatever that charge is, they're usually whether they get acquitted or they usually serve less time than the average citizen. So and research shows that. So yeah, the idea of him being treated like everyone else is obviously, you're in law enforcement, and part of the allegations is that he was essentially, protecting this illegal gambling operation from prosecution. So he essentially, with the government is arguing that he used his position of power to shield this entity. So you can't have it both ways. Essentially, what's being said here. So no, he's not going to be treated like every other individual, and his status in the community as a leader is going to be part of this narrative from both sides in terms of allegedly committing being involved in this illegal gambling operation. So yeah, you can't have it both ways. This is obviously going to be a key component that our government is going to argue that he had the trust of the community and that he did the complete opposite of what he was elected to do.
All right. Well, hey, Dr. Walker, thank you so much for joining us. Final thoughts on this whole thing that you've got.
Yeah, it's just shocking. Like I said, law enforcement very rarely gets this kind of charge. And then obviously, how often do you hear about someone from law enforcement be involved in some kind of illegal gambling, organization? So it's shocking. And this is not only not a Central Florida or a state, issue. This has made national news, and as we get closer to the trial, I'm quite sure we'll continue to hear about this, and maybe you'll have me back on to talk about it.
Well, hey, listen, well, we're always looking for, experts and stuff to talk and add some context as we continue to cover all the things that happen here in Central Florida and Florida. All right, Dr. Walker, thank you so much for joining us. We really do appreciate it. We are going to take a quick break. I'm going to give you a live look here over at, again, back over to downtown Orlando, right over here, the Kia Center. It is about 11:35 right now. Light traffic. We can look on the Interstate 4. It's one of our main highways here in Florida if you've been. So we will see you on the other side of 2 minutes. All right, welcome back into Fox 35 News Plus. My name is Josh Fugerio. I'm in for Garrett Weimer, so if you're missing him, don't worry. He's going to be back next week to bring you all the news and information as it's happening here in Central Florida and Florida. But for today, you've got me for the next hour, and it's at 2 o'clock as well for Florida Live. So we are going to get right out to Fox 35 reporter Marie Edinger. Marie, I've got you up on the feed right now, and you've been following this case along with us since yesterday as this news broke, kind of looking at the documents and looking at the charges. We know that Marcos Lopez made his first appearance this morning. What was surprising to you? What have you taken note of?
So, I mean, I think the bond amount was really surprising. It was slightly less than the state had asked for. They'd asked for $1.2 million. The judge wound up granting $1 million. That means that Lopez would have to pay a bail bondsman $100,000 to get out of jail, or $1 million if he wanted to pay the bond directly and be able to maybe get that money back if he does show up for his first appearance. And the other notable things are that some of his co-defendants listed in this case, two of them also had their first appearances this morning, and the judge actually set their bonds higher than what the state was requesting. I did talk with an attorney who says that he was a little bit peeved by this. He thinks that bail is not meant to be punitive, and that the standard for what you'd have to prove in court, the beyond a reasonable doubt line that you'd have to get to land a conviction is much higher than what you need to actually get arrested. You just need to prove probable cause in order to get a warrant. So he's saying that the bail might have been a little bit too high for his taste, but the The prosecution brought up some fears of flight risk and brought up some of the notable moments that are mentioned in the affidavit that helped prove their case, they're saying. So I would say the $1 million came as a shocker, but the state and the judge explained their reasoning today.
Yeah, and that seems to be the next part of the case. Obviously, Marcos Lopez is the big name in this, but he is not the only person charged. I believe there are, and correct me if I am wrong, I believe there are 4 people that are on this information. And so, yes, we saw the 2 after Marcos Lopez has his first appearance, then the other 2 went there. Do we know where yet Marcos Lopez falls in this in terms of the hierarchy between the other 2? Do we have those details yet?
We do. So at least as compared to the other 2, the state actually mentioned the other 2 who appeared today as what she called B defendants, as in they're kind of second tier, secondary to Marcos Lopez as far as their involvement in this. So one of them, her last name is Coty, she was given a lower bond amount that was, I believe, at $100,000. I'll check while we're on here. The other who was mentioned today was given, yeah, it's $100,000 for Coty. Frederick was given a $300,000 bond, which was higher than what the state had even asked for. Hers was higher not because she had a greater involvement than Coty, so far as we can tell. It was more that she has a number of other pending cases. I actually did notice one of those yesterday in Orange County. She'd been charged with fraud in the past, and she has a number of ongoing cases right now that her attorney who appeared today is also representing her for. Just as a side note, one of the things that he brought up as a reason to not keep her in jail was that it would be hard to get between her court appearances in Orange County and in Lake County if she were in jail here. So his argument was, how's she going to get to her other things she's accused of and deal with the court system there? She should be free and out on the streets. So the judge wasn't buying that, at least not without anything to put up. So she got the $300,000 bond. We're still waiting to get the affidavit. I did go into court today, tried to talk with the comptroller or with the circuit court, and then went into the reading room, called the felony department, tried all of the olden timey stuff that we used to do back in the day as reporters. But the affidavit is apparently taking some time to process. So all the details mentioned today from the first appearance, that's what we're hoping to get our eyes on. Hoping to get that today, but we'll see whether we can maybe get that from the Attorney General's office or if we're going to have to wait.
Yeah, and the one thing that we were heard in this hearing, and this is kind of, I think, where the reporting kind of advances today, if we can get it, was what did this alleged illegal gambling house look like? I know we had found the building yesterday, but I'm curious, it mentioned a lottery and it mentioned a slot machine. Is that one? Is that many? How big was this building? What is it that the detectives or investigators have seen? And so we heard in that hearing today a mention that there were photos as evidence. Did you hear that as well?
Yeah, so there are a number of photos. And as for the slot machines, I'll mention that we know there's more than one because Marcos Lopez has multiple charges or not charges. They all fall under the RICO Act, but he has multiple mentions of slot machines relating to him. So we know it's more than one. The photos that the state brought up today that the prosecution mentioned, they said, for one, or the one that was most important to me that jumped out, was that they have photos of law enforcement showing up at this business, and they have photos that they say demonstrate that Marcos Lopez used his role as sheriff to influence the investigation, that he maybe pushed them away a bit or said we're all wrapped up. We don't know his involvement exactly, but they're saying that they have evidentiary proof, just actually photographic proof, as well as text messages that show that he was using his role as sheriff to influence an investigation when deputies showed up at this business. And then they also mentioned that he was trying to expand that business and work on a few others as late as 2021, I believe.
All right, well, Marie, we're going to let you get back to work, bringing us the latest details. Hopefully we'll talk to you at Fox 35 News at 5 o'clock as well for the latest there. So we'll let you go, and we're going to take a quick break. So thank you, Marie, for joining us here. We're going to take a quick break, and before we do that, I'm going to give you a live look over here at Universal's Volcano Bay. Again, hazy today as that Saharan dust is making its way across. The good news there, I was talking to Brooks earlier this morning, is that Saharan dust can limit tropical activity. So I did look at the National Hurricane Center this morning, and right now no tropical activity expected over the next 7 days. So we'll see you in 2 minutes. We're talking some theme park news, very exciting with our buddy Theron. Can't wait to talk to Theron. We'll see you in 2 minutes. Six. All right, welcome back everybody to Fox 35 News Plus. All right, we're going to talk about some lighter stuff, but some fun stuff. We are always interested in the theme parks. And of course, if we're going to talk theme parks, we have to talk with our buddy, Theron White, lead publisher and president there of Everything You Need to Know, EYNTK.info. Really a great resource for everything that is all about theme parks and restaurants going on here. All right, Theron, you look like you're in a very cool spot. Tell me where you're at.
Yeah, I am here in the Sea Life Florida Aquarium. This just opened today, about an hour ago, at Legoland, Florida. As you can see here, I am surrounded by fish. I'm surrounded by a ton of water and black-tipped reef sharks. This aquarium actually has 11 different themed zones that you can go through. And I'm in here, and what's probably the coolest one, it's called the theme park under the sea. We've got a ton of kids over here that are checking it out. But there's actually a castle underwater. There's a roller coaster underwater, a Ferris wheel. So they did a lot of really cool theming for this.
Yeah, it looks really neat. And there's like some like really big fish behind you kind of walking around. This has been big for Legoland. Legoland has been adding, new things. This is what we've been talking about. I mean, you were there just a couple of months ago and it was still under construction, right? When you were live with us?
Yeah, just about 2 months ago, this was a bunch of dirt and concrete and steel, and they had a lot of work they had to do. And they've gotten a lot done in that time. I mean, you can see how colorful it is, how clear the water is, and they've got literally hundreds of fish in here. We've actually got a little hotel here, a little hotel for the fish. And so it's really cool. I mean, this is more than just an aquarium. It's an educational experience, and it builds on top of Sea Life's mission to be able to help out the animals, not only here, but all around the world.
Yeah, what's been some of the chatter that you've heard kind of just as you've been in there, as kids and families, I imagine, are spending a day out there?
Oh, the kids are absolutely loving it. I mean, there's a touch tank in here. There's multiple education zones. And right there is the castle that they have here underwater. So, I mean, it's
The
more than
Coral
just an aquarium.
Kingdom.
It's an experience. Exactly, yes. And so I think that it's really, really a nice addition because if you're already here at Legoland, you can add this on, or for select annual passes, they have that as part of your pass as well. So this is not just one little aquarium on the side of the road. This is a large expansion to Legoland as they continue expanding more and more. And they officially said today that they're hoping to open early next year a brand new roller coaster here at the park as well.
Oh, really? Okay, well, that's super exciting. And this is kind of one of a number of different summer events that are going on, right?
That is correct. Yes. So we've got this as the beginning of their thing. And weekends, it's your last chance. You can go here to the Lego Festival. They're going to have a bunch of different opportunities here at the park, 5 different zones that you can go to. There's chill areas, there's dance areas, there's even a Fortnite area where you can meet some of the characters from Lego Fortnite. It's Lego Adventure Feeling. You can meet them here in the park. You can do a dance party with them. It's really, really cool to be able to check that out. And sorry, that's just this last weekend, though. It was your last chance.
Oh, yeah, we're playing some video kind of over that. I'm sure that you can see, but that looks pretty, that's pretty cool. Okay.
Yeah, that was the grand opening moment just from about right out 1 hour ago.
Oh, wow. One more new thing for Legoland to add. You and I have talked about this theme park renaissance, and you always say there's only the people who win are the people who go to theme parks.
Oh, I totally agree. I mean, as a fan, this is the best thing possible. We have seen explosions all over the Central Florida area and even beyond. Just kind of really talking about what the theme parks can add and what they're doing for us guests. The only people that need to be worried about competition are the executives. Us fans, we're getting more and more and more. I mean, look at this. This is just such a fun addition.
I mean, I got to say it there, and it looks like a very big castle. We're just kind of seeing it on the screen with you, but that's I mean, that wouldn't fit in a 10-gallon fish tank that my house.
No, there is way more than 10 gallons here. This is just one, again, of the 11 different sections. So I'm here because this is definitely one of the coolest. The theme park under the sea, it's got this huge bit of acrylic above here that you can kind of walk under and see some of these animals. But there's way more. I don't know if you'll be able to see it, but right behind me, there's actually a viewing area in the back. So you can actually see kids over there right now in a whole different area. They've got an area filled with black lights. They've got an area where kids can go and do the touch tank. So there's a lot going on here that you could spend well more than an hour in here and go and explore and learn about the fish.
Yeah. Now, before we get over, I know there's some things going on over at SeaWorld Orlando, but we were talking about, you always talk about this deal over at Legoland. Like it's a family park, and just to keep things in mind, when kind of making over there. What's the tips and tricks that you got there?
Well, definitely check out the Legoland website. So they usually can do a bunch of different tips. If you're a Florida resident or a Georgia resident, they're offering discounts this summer. So you can go and check those out. It's different depending on which day you're going to go, which package you're going to add. Because here at the Legoland Florida Resort, they have what they consider 4 different gates. So you can go to Legoland Florida theme park. You can head here to the Sea Life Florida. You can go to the Peppa Pig theme park, or you can go to the Lego Water Park. So whatever one of those you want to be able to check out, you can go in and see. They have done in the past. They have done kids free days. They've done really cheap days. So go on their website. There's a lot of details there. We can go and kind of decide exactly what you want to do. That I mean, they even have different packages for the hotels and stuff like that.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's jump over to SeaWorld Orlando. I was actually just there last weekend. Mako is my favorite ride at that theme park. That airtime drop gets me. The first drop gets me every single time, but then that airtime over those next hills, I think there's nothing cooler than that type of coaster there. But they have a new drone show coming up. Tell me about that.
Yeah, that's going to actually start tomorrow. So they've already had for a long time their famous Ignite fireworks show. They've had that and they've switched it out with different ideas, different lasers and stuff like that. But this year, the big thing is going to be their drone show. Hundreds of drones are going to be flying over the park and they're going to be doing fireworks. And it just adds on to their Club Sea Below and some of the offerings they have there. And one thing that I think is very interesting, that drone show is starting tomorrow, Saturday. But on June 14th, SeaWorld Orlando will be the only place on the Western Hemisphere of the world to have emperor penguins. They're moving their penguins in from over in SeaWorld San Diego, so you'll be able to go and enjoy and check those out too. Of course, with all the drones, all the summer stuff, there's a ton to be able to see.
Do you have the best job out there?
Hey, I love my job. I'm a very big fan of this. I mean, my job is to go around to the theme parks and check it all out and tell you everything you need to know for all the exciting stuff and all the things that's new. It's busy, but it's the best busy possible.
Yeah, I was gonna say, every time we talk to you, you're at a theme park somewhere with the latest information that's going on. All right, and then the last thing is Halloween Horror Nights, right? Really big deals going on there. A few tickets have gone on sale. What's the latest confirmed news and rumors that you've heard?
Yeah, so the newest thing was just confirmed yesterday. The Fallout video game, and it's also an Amazon Prime series, that is going to be coming to Halloween Horror Nights for its own haunted house. That's going to be not only here in Orlando, but also in Hollywood. If you have watched the Fallout series on Amazon Prime, not very kid friendly, but it is a very, very fun show. And they're going to be bringing that in. We're going to go into Vault 33 itself, and we're going to be exploring some of that and following the storyline of Lucy, the Ghoul, and Maximus. And so if you've seen that show, if you know the Halloween Horror Nights and they're extreme attention to detail, this might be the most excited I am of any of the houses this year. We've only had 2 so far properties confirmed, but it's going to be hard to beat for this because I really, really enjoy this property.
Yeah, that'll be that's always the fun thing this time of year is how Universal is going to unveil the HHN announcements, right? Usually it's kind of this, it seems to always be kind of this trickle down effect. It builds interest and you just got to stick with it for the next couple of weeks or months, really.
They like, sometimes they like to just drop 5 things at once, and then sometimes they make us wait for it. We never know. They like to mess with us, I feel like.
Yeah. All right, there. And we are wrapping up here quick, but for the latest on theme park news and everything else, we'll cover it here at Fox 35. We'll cover it here on Fox 35 News Plus, but you've got a great resource with reviews and tips and tricks. Tell everybody about it.
Yeah, if you ever want to learn everything you need to know, you can head to eyntk.info. We've got a website, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, everything you can think of is there.
Well, awesome. Darren, always good to talk to you. I appreciate it, and we'll catch you with the next one coming up pretty soon, I'm sure.
Absolutely. See you later from Sea Life, Florida.
Man, what a great job that he has, and that castle was huge. Johnny, what'd you think? Yeah, it was pretty sick. As a producer Johnny, he's over there as he says. Yeah, you can see that right there. I'm gonna take there and shot again just so we can see that he's kind of keeping it up for us. But look at all those fish and everything going by, and I don't know, it looks like some coral flowers, and maybe one of them looks like a Dole Whip, but we'll kind of see what they were doing in there as those fish are coming through. So very, very cool. Well, we are in the final few minutes here of Fox 35 News Plus. I appreciate you sticking with us for the hour here as we covered really a lot of things going on here in Central Florida and Florida, kind of continuing to follow the updates that are happening with suspended Sheriff Marcos Lopez. Marie Edinger is going to continue working on that. Reporter Randy is also on that story today. Looking just into reaction and kind of additional details and information on the case, as well as more details on the other people that are allegedly involved kind of in this, investigation that is happening. So if you weren't here in the beginning, we talked a lot about it, but this is kind of what happened. Marcos Lopez was in court. The judge ruled $1 million bond, $500,000 for each count. If he does post that, he'll need GPS monitoring. He must surrender his firearms and his passport to FDLE, and then no contact with his co-defendants. All right, that's going to do it for us. I'm going to give you a live look there at Volcano Bay, and we will see you here at 2 o'clock for Florida Live.